I would like to thank all of you for inviting me to Vignan's University to contribute to your conference. It is a very great honor for me to represent Winston-Salem State University in North Carolina as a special guest. I appreciate your kind and generous hospitality, and I am looking forward to the exchange of ideas and learning more about your university. My attendance at this conference marks the my fifth visit to India, and each time I come to your country, it gets better than the last. Yes. I met Dr. Sackeyfio in August 2014 at the Women's World Congress in Hyderabad, which was a wonderful conference that brought together women scholars from all over the world. It is through her that I learned about your conference, and I would like to thank you personally for inviting me. Your conference theme, language, literature, and cultural studies and knowledge resources, is very timely and appropriate as it complements and supports global dialogue, pedagogy that is aimed at greater global awareness and international citizenship. The growing emphasis on the need for global understanding in the new millennium can only be achieved when individuals, institutions, and nations come together as equal partners in contemporary society. The educational process has a role to play, an important role to play, to meet the challenges posed by 21st century realities that continue to transform the world in both positive and negative ways. Again, I am very proud to be here. I thank you for this opportunity, and congratulations on this inaugural conference. And this morning's opening ceremonies were absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. C is global pedagogy through cultural studies and literary crossroads. As you heard from my introduction, I am a professor of English. I teach in the Department of English. So in my university, let me explain how my presentation came about. In my university in Winston-Salem State, we have written into our mission statement internationalization of the curriculum. And one of the things that is happening all over America at all three levels of education, primary school, secondary school, university level, is that we want our students to develop 21st century skills such as global competence, global awareness, sensitivity to other cultures, other religions, and other parts of the world, so that students in the United States can emerge as graduates who are competitive in the global arena. So that requires pedagogy. It requires innovative approaches to teaching. So in my university and across the state of North Carolina, we have a 17-campus system, the University of North Carolina, and my university is one of those. We are an historically Black institution, and to make a long story short, we have 17 campuses, and most of those campuses, I think about 9 of them, have some form of mission statement to address globalization of our students. At UNC, toward the end of my presentation, I'm going to talk about how we have study abroad initiatives, we have grants, we have partnerships, we have joint courses, we have faculty exchange, and so on, to integrate India area studies into our university systems, into our curriculum. So to begin, my presentation today is a combination of my paper, which I'm going to shorten. I'm not going to read my paper. It is primarily a PowerPoint. I will only share sections of my paper. So to begin, the social, economic, and political transformations of the 21st century have created an environment of interlocking forces of information, knowledge exchange, and interdependence across national boundaries. So in keeping with what I said a moment ago, in the educational sector, we are trying to create a global village, global dialogue, and create students who can navigate this new world in the 21st century. In focusing on cultural studies and literature, my paper aims to highlight strategies. So in the second part of my presentation, I am going to introduce a course that I developed based on women's literature that incorporates cultural studies to globalize our students. To continue, graduates, as I said a moment ago, students who graduate in the future all over the world will be working for international companies. They will be competing in an increasingly global talent pool and facing international issues and events such as, and some of these are very timely, actually they all are, global health, global warming, energy and water, terrorism. A case in point is the recent Ebola outbreak, acts of terrorism in Europe, environmental pollution, and cyber attacks, and we've had these in recent international headlines, affect people in diverse regions of the world. Students in today's world must acquire knowledge of other regions of the world in order to understand these complicated issues. In addition to language acquisition, other than English, critical thinking skills, problem solving, and the ability to process information from different sources around the world is a measure of how well prepared students can become. So basically, this is a summary of what I just said. Global pedagogy, because of the changes in the world, is an imperative to foster global competence. So what I'm doing in my presentation is showing you one or two ways in which we do this with literature. Global transformation, the world is constantly changing. Competition in an open market, economic interdependence and marketable skills. These are the forces that are at work, as you're all familiar with, that require a different type of graduate in today's world. Global competence. In my paper, I have many more criteria to help conceptualize global competence, but I've only summarized a few of them. The ability to investigate the world beyond one's immediate environment. This is especially important for students in the West. As an educator, one of the things that I have noted is that in my travels and in my experience is that students in the West know less about the world than students know about the United States. I think we can all agree. Where I live in North Carolina, our students come from very small communities, and if you ask them even where is this country, where is that country, they don't know. So they're like quite narrow in perspective. So the idea of getting our students to engage with other parts of the world is extremely important. To continue, respect for other cultures, tolerance for diversity, language acquisition, and you may change the slide. These are just a few ideas about global competence, the impact of globalization, positive and negative consequences, cultural imperialism, economic marginalization, and global culture that we all are living in and that we are all somehow assimilating whether we want to or not, is part of the changes that I am highlighting. Yes. Cultural studies. Cultural studies is extremely important in helping to develop this kind of global pedagogy. We are educating for social change as a broad educational goal. There is, because literature represents a window into the world of human experience, I have found that as a teacher of world literature, that's one of the courses that I teach, that it is possible to infuse a lot of cultural knowledge into the curriculum depending upon the diversity of the reading selections, as in world literature. So I call this reading across cultural boundaries. And you may change the slide. Cultural studies is very appropriate in globalizing our students because cultural studies is flexible and eclectic. It has grown in prominence and it's being discussed in academic circles across disciplines in US. Cultural content can be infused across diverse academic disciplines. And cultural studies has a strong and vibrant relationship with pedagogy that is aimed at social change, so that literature, as I said a moment ago, may become a form of cultural studies. Teaching literature across cultures aims to see the nation through the local, yet as part of the global. And one of the things, hold on a moment, that I wanted to share with you is that cultural studies can be expanded in the humanities and social sciences, in departments of sociology, history, anthropology, and many, many other disciplines, especially in terms of courses that, that explore the intersection of race, class, and gender. So the basic point of this is that cultural studies can be infused across disciplines, and the role of literature, as I said, is very, very powerful because literature is a cultural product. When we think of it as a cultural product, it will frame the examination of global pedagogy. So what I would like to do now is, you may change the slide. These are, and I took this from a text by David Damrosch called Teaching World Literature. And in that text, the first part of it is theory, pedagogical theory, literary theory. But what is wonderful about this book is that he gives, the chapters in the book highlight different strategies for teaching world literature. So one of them, which I cannot go into in detail because of time, is a kind of artistic theme. And what that means is that a teacher designs a world literature course that focuses on artists in different cultures. The artist theme in diverse historical, geographical, and cultural contexts. Another example for a world literature course is the religious theme studied in diverse texts. For example, world literature courses that might compare and contrast the Bible with another religious text from another, a polytheistic viewpoint. And the third one is the one that is the second part of my presentation. This represents a course that I developed in 2010 in my university to globalize our students. We developed many, many new courses in 2010, and as a professor of English, I developed a course called Women's Literature in a Global Context. And what this is a model, and interestingly, in my course, you can change the slide, please. Yeah, this is my course. Okay, this is an overview of the way that I developed a world literature course based around women's writing from different parts of the world. So, in my course, we explore cross-cultural experiences of women as expressed in literature. And presently, in my course, I have writing from various Asian women, Latin American women, Arab women, Native American, African, and Indian. I have, if you see where I have Indian here, this is a result of a seminar in 2012. Myself and 2 colleagues, we are very fortunate to have been awarded a National Endowment for the Humanities grant for $100,000. And yes, thank you very much. And guess what? The focus of the grant was for a number of Winston-Salem State faculty to learn about your country, India. Yeah, we did that. And we have approximately 13 faculty members from different disciplines. And in the grant, over a 12-month period, well, the grant was from 2012 until the present. And for the first year of the grant, 13 of us, well, we invited India experts to our university, and they gave us workshops. And because of time, I can't tell you the names of all the people, but I can say that most of them were Indian scholars based in US. So we had someone who talked to us about religion. We had someone who talked to us about art and architecture. We had someone who talked about, we had a political scientist. So we would meet, I think, throughout the semester every month. And every month we had an India expert. But the faculty who were part of this, there are 13 of them. Yes? My area, as I told you, is English, and that is how I came to have India here. So I have a module or a unit in my course that concerns Indian women. So does that make sense? Yeah? You can change the slide, please. In terms of, this is an overview of my course. My course is a comparative analysis of women's stories, women's responses to the challenges that we face as females, women's identity and status, ethnicity, and cultural roles. So for each of, depending upon the region of the world that we are studying, we look at these through women's stories. I open the semester. Have any of you heard of, it's a YouTube, this is a 20-minute YouTube called The Danger of a Single Story. Has anybody heard of it? It is very well known. Please write it down. I'm hoping that some of you can Google it and find it. It is a 20-minute video by the leading African woman writer. Her name is Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Chimamanda is internationally renowned, and one of the things I love about this 20-minute YouTube video is that it is used in history courses, political science courses, anthropology courses, sociology courses, and many courses to help students look beyond their own immediate environment. And when my students watch it, I ask my students at the end of it, what does she mean by the single story? Can anybody here guess what you think the single story means, based upon what I've said so far? What is a single story? Yes? No, not the story of humanity, but the what? Not quite. What is the single story, if you can guess? Excellent. Can you say that louder, please?
No, it's just an assumption. It could be like a single perspective and
Yes.
how destructive it can go.
Yes, it's a generalization about a group of people, about a race, about a religion, about a gender. And who said, I think I'm hearing the word stereotype?
It's a single culture. the ideology that you are placed in.
And
Don't construe the world your limited perception.
who said that again? Can I hear that again?
Here, ma'am. I am Hari
Oh,
Prasad.
you're there. I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you.
I think I heard you right, but I want to hear it again, please.
It's single culture, ma'am. Single culture. You are placed in certain culture, and you construe the world in the limitations that your culture has.
Okay, I would accept that. And to continue, do you know what happens, unfortunately, in the United States? Students and the general public get most of their information about other cultures from the media. And I don't know if you know it, but in the Western media, we get bad news, we get crisis, we get war, we get poverty. So my students have a teeny tiny view of the world and of other cultures. And because I'm an Africa-centered professor, I talk to my students about the continent of Africa, and my students have media images of Africa, very small ones. They're all starving. They're all dying of AIDS. They all live in huts. They're all very poor. So in this little 20-minute YouTube that is very well known, Chimamanda, well, it's like what we call among Africans, she breaks it down, basically. She gives examples of how this is very dangerous, and it's very powerful. And as I said before, lots of interdisciplinary faculty use this video. It is called The Danger of a Single Story. So she presents a compelling narrative, and after this I ask students what they think the single story means. And then one of the things that I do when I teach literature is that I try to get students to give personal, real-life examples. So after the students have watched the 20-minute video, I ask them, can you think of a single story that has affected you personally? And then they get it. Yes, you may change the slide. So that's part of my strategy. Students are encouraged to share their own experiences of single stories and examples from the larger society. You may change the, I'm not doing well. Critical thinking, I'm not, critical thinking across cultures. For the person who said stereotypes, what we want to avoid in our students is stereotypes, ethnocentrism, leaping generalizations, and making judgments about people from other parts of the world. You may change the slide, please.
She has a question for you. She has a question for you.
Yes.
This is just stereotyping of India that happened in media 2 years back about the Delhi rape case.
Yes, yes. There you go.
So it's always New Delhi, New Delhi, New Delhi, as if all over India women are being raped every day.
I know.
And it was just before my visit to the US, and I saw all this new media, focus with glee. And I think after 10 days, there was a school shooting in the US.
Yeah, there you are.
Of kids, young kids.
And I could not agree more. And one of the things I tell my students is that the United States has the largest incidence of violence by handgun in the entire industrialized world. So there are many, many contradictions and paradoxes in the way we view incidents in the world. But thank you for that. I'm hoping through the way that I expose my students that they avoid unfounded assumptions, seeing issues in black and white, and reductionist thinking, which, as you know, is simplistic thinking. Please. I'm going to move a little quicker. This is a rubric that I use. We want our students to become open-minded, self-aware, honest, have skepticism, be active thinkers and readers, and to respect cultural differences. Yes. The themes in my course about women's writing, these are this means that I have selections of short stories, basically fiction, and in the stories we may look at political repression, patriarchy, resistance, women's resistance, exile, customs, marriage and family, coming of age, and identity. And for those of you who teach literature, you know that there could be a single piece of work that might have more than one of these. Yeah? Global awareness, intercultural competence, which I discussed. This one, it's kind of a repetition. Because our students know so little of the world, before I teach a piece of literature from any part of the world, we go through, well, I show slide presentations of all my travels. These provide real life connections, map studies, presentations, information, and so on. Yes. And this is my unit that I am developing on Indian women. So I have something like this. Yes, go ahead. Cultural and historical, I show PowerPoints, images of people and places, YouTube videos, we discuss current events. The cultural lens, we look at women's roles, customs, traditions, cultural norms, and expectations. Yes. The post-colonial lens is another framework of analyzing the literature. Similarities and differences in women's experiences, the intersection of race, class, and gender, women as a marginalized group within the post-colonial framework, women's political status. Yeah. Popular culture, we also look at personalities, historical figures like Indira Gandhi and other important women. We talk a little bit about Bollywood. And by the way, we had a film expert who came and talked to us all about Bollywood in US. I think this person was not an Indian person, but it was someone who studies South Asian culture. You may change the slide. Cultural and historical parallels. Identity, class, Dalit oppression. On my syllabus, I have 2 or 3 selections by Dalit women writers because this intersects very comfortably or uncomfortably with African American and African oppression. Yeah, because as you know, the reason somebody like me was born in the United States is because my ancestors were captured, stolen from Africa. So generations ago, we have a history of oppression in the United States. Gender, the status of women in society, education, empowerment, yes. I also make, in terms of the India unit, intersections that connect Gandhi with Martin Luther King, the origins of nonviolence, which I'm sure many of you know, that Martin Luther King studied and adopted the principles of nonviolence. That's another cultural connection for Black American students in the States. Leadership, historical significance. Yes. And I have not shown these yet. I have seen them, but I have not actually shown these yet. And I think I will, that's exactly 30 minutes. And you have a question, please.
Rose,
Yes.
I'm very sympathetic that since coming to India and seeing the things in reality, you do not take the Western media, especially US media, because we are fed up, really fed up with US media all the time belittling all the Asian countries and many other countries all the time. Mm-hmm. They have forgotten that, for example, colonization, and during the time that 60 years, there were no universities. Mm-hmm. All universities were closed during the British rule. So women could not go. There were no universities and colleges. It was only schools. So there were films they show in my university, in my college, the films which only portray the slums, the shanties of India. Mm-hmm. And when they take the pictures of the women, they only go to villages. Exactly. They forget. It's only in Asian countries you have women president, you have women prime minister. We have not selected yet Hillary Clinton, right? So we all forget. that what Indian thank you. We all forget what Indian civilization and culture has given to the world. So I'm so thankful to you that you are trying to give a realistic picture rather than inflated picture of all these things media is doing. And I really wish all these people, when you ever hear anything about US media, do not believe that.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to add to what Professor said, in my travels, CNN, as you know, is like a corporate entity that is a global product. And what I have seen is that when I'm in Africa, CNN is regional, and you only get the news from the continent. And then when I'm in Asia, I get another CNN. So please know, and when I have been in Europe, another CNN for that region. And it's like a bird's eye view. It's really very, very poor. But unfortunately, people consume this as part of their reality. And it creates, as I said before, the danger of a single story. And if there are questions, I will take them. If not, thank you very, very much.